Welcome to Tokyo Theater Friends. I'm Jose Solis. If you are a regular, welcome back. But if you're new here, we are a community of BIPOC journalists and friends who love the performing arts so much that we do a weekly podcast and web series where we interview some of our favorite artists and also discuss shows that we have been watching. If you're new, we also have a wealth of episodes from the past, including interviews with Jasmine Batchelor of the Circuit and Anjanou Ellis and Chisa Hutchinson of the subject. If you like the work that we do on our website, our web series, and our podcast, please remember that we are completely crowdfunded, meaning that everything we do is thanks to your contributions. You can become a contributor by joining our friend zone on Patreon. We have several tiers starting at $1. And whether you are able to contribute $1 or $1,000 a month, which we thank you for, by the way, you get the exact same things. Like we have a weekly newsletter, we have bonus content on our Patreon, we have exclusives, and we have much, much, much more coming soon. Our guest today is Kwame Kwei-Armah, the artistic director of the Young Vic in London, and also a performer and playwright. The interview was done by my colleagues Andrew Kendall and Brittani Samuel, and it's an incredibly rich conversation where they are able to celebrate Afro-Caribbean culture and the Black diaspora. So I really hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to our podcast, Kwame. We're not gonna start with any big, felicitations. We'll just jump right into it, and you can tell us a bit about who you are and what we're gonna be doing today. So, who are you,
Well,
Kwame?
first of all, I'm overjoyed to be invited in. It makes me happy every time I see someone or people from the Caribbean doing big things. So I'm overjoyed. I'm overjoyed about that. And actually, what you're hearing me doing right now is just making sure that my computer doesn't ding all the way through our meeting. But yeah, I'm overjoyed. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So tell our audiences a bit about yourself.
Great. My name is Kwame Kwei-Armah. I'm the artistic director of the Young Vic Theatre in London, as well as a playwright and screenwriter. My parents are from Grenada. Whoop, whoop. It was just our independence the other day. Come we go. I describe myself, if I must, as a generative, interpretive, and curatorial artist.
That's beautiful. And I want to note how cool it is that we have all the diaspora representation right now. You in London and Andrew's in Guyana and I'm in New York, as
Come on now.
West Indian is.
So Triangle.
Come on now. We got it going.
I mean, obviously it's been difficult adjusting to the digital life, but we were only able to do this because we are living in the age of, digitization. And I think my first question for you was like, how is it for you managing your roles in this, post-pandemic world?
I would say it is both difficult and also it's difficult, but I just want to put it in context, right? The context is that I have health, I have family, I have a home, and probably most importantly, I have good broadband.
Listen, that is key.
right. I mean, like broadband, hot water, broadband.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and broadband is central.
Broadband, 20 years ago, broadband wouldn't even be spoken about. Now it's absolutely number one. And so I think the hardest thing is having a theatre that is designed to be a crucible of discussion, a citadel of exchange, and to have that being empty is problematic and painful. On the flip side, we have three departments of our theatre. One is what happens on our main stage, another is what happens in the community, and another is what happens with emerging artists. And so we've been able to keep our community, to switch our community onto online and do a lot of really great work. It's actually a Vincentian, a young woman, a British Vincentian young woman, runs our Taking Part, Shireen Jasmine Phillips. and is doing tremendous work. And in our taking part, we have like maybe 15,000 emerging artists who are part of a group that meet daily and weekly. I mean, not always 15,000, but people from that group. And we have workshops from mental well-being to how do you create Zoom art. So the theatre has been moving, has been contributing. We just haven't had anything on our main stage bar one event in nigh on a year. And that's quite hard on the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. I also work at a work in administration at a theater here in New York, and it has been very difficult, especially with the virtual pivot. But even you personally, you recently had your play "Let There Be Love" play at Atlantic Theater Company, who I absolutely adore the Atlantic. Their virtual African Caribbean Mix Fest. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yes. Tell us all about that.
Well, actually, they do a kind of mix fest, like annually, I think, and then they just hit me up and just said, "Listen, we want to do one that's focusing on the Caribbean," and I was just like, "Yeah, well, I'm all in. I'm all in." And Guadalise, who was our co-producer on that, she's from Dom Rep. So often in the Caribbean, when we think about the Caribbean, we think about the English-speaking Caribbean,
Right.
and as opposed to the French, the Spanish, the Dutch. I mean, it goes on and on. Hip hop, you don't stop, right? And so, in a way, it was really beautiful actually to be looking at the Caribbean and looking at it through those two lenses. And they did a brilliant job with my play "Let There Be Love." I was really touched. In fact, I was so touched by it. I was so, I was so, it was so beautiful. I'm the kind of playwright that once I've written a play and it's been produced, I forget about it. And what I mean by I forget about it, I don't even remember the plotting. I don't remember the name of the characters. It's literally like I need to release, megabytes from my brain in order to continue on. And so I had forgotten much of the plot, and they did a beautiful job. But more importantly than doing a beautiful job, they really inspired me, because I then I took the weekend out and I adapted it into a screenplay. It moved me that much. So yeah, it was good. But let me talk to you about it a little bit, which is why it was important, why it's pertinent to this discussion, is because the lead character, I now do remember his name, Alfred, was is part of what we call here, which of course the Windrush generation, those who left the Caribbean from the 47, 48 on, right up until about 62. My parents were right at the back end of that. My father came in 1960 to England. My mother came in 1962. And actually, it's about a kind of really grumpy old West Indian who has been gifted home help, and that home help is a new immigrant from Poland. And really, the play was about a really, well, at least for me, it was about discussing inheritance. It was about celebrating how this country, how my parents' generation warmed this country up, how they made it better for us, how we stand on the shoulders, but also what was the cost to family, to self, to soul, doing battle with the freezing white cold that was Britain at that time. And so it means a lot to me. I wrote the play for my mother, so it means a lot to me.
Just really lovely. I mean, we have this on our list for later on, but I'm thinking when you said you wrote it for your mother about a recent piece of artwork about the Wind Generation, which was Steve McQueen's Small Axe, because he's also said that he wrote some of that for his mother, and I think that connection for people from the West Indies and diaspora about remembering those who came before us and thinking about how where we are in these countries depends on them. I think it's so important in Caribbean art, that lineage, that memory of ancestors.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenally important. And the reason I think it's phenomenally important is because for us, ancestry is more than a theology. Ancestry and the connection with the pain, the suffering, but yet the strength exhibited by our ancestors are in part of our everyday existence. As we battle with the latest manifestations of racism, we have to look back and negotiate with how our parents and their parents negotiated with their racism, with the racism that was inflicted and the white supremacy that was inflicted upon them, and without understanding our ancestors' journeys and struggles, we will feel, and it will be a great disadvantage, that we are reinventing the wheel. And the moment that you think that you're reinventing the wheel, you spend too much bandwidth trying to create ground rules, whereas others already have the rules and can just keep running forward. So our relationship is with our ancestors is spiritual, yes it is, but it is also politically practical, because without it, with a disconnect, we find ourselves running in circles.
Absolutely. In your position, especially at the Young Vic, the past few years, have you noticed an increase in this type of Caribbean influenced storytelling or ancestral connected storytelling? I know when I saw Small Acts, it felt like a bit of a revelation for me. I've never seen Caribbean culture that get that kind of cinematic treatment in such a marvelous way.
And you worked with Sean Parks. He was in your play.
I was speaking to Parksy like only a couple of days ago, and actually he said he was in a play of mine called Elmina's Kitchen, and his performance is magnificent. Thank you. His performance is magnificent, and it was really, actually, Parksy is a really interesting character, because he hasn't got his due. He is typical of how Britain has treated its extremely brilliant Black British talent. That it neither has given it the profile or the space to truly shine, and when it does shine, it drops it the moment after the performance has shone and moves on to the next thing. And so when we think about John Boyega, when we think about Chiwetel, when we think about Idris, when we think about Damson Idris, we go, oh my God, it's an explosion. But actually, those are aberrations. The overwhelming majority of Black British artists have not been celebrated in this environment, nor have they been given the space to fulfill their potential. And so I was overjoyed that Parks did such a brilliant job in Steve McQueen's Small Acts, because he deserves the attention, and he deserves, the dam needs to break, not just crack, but the dam needs to break open, so that wherever you're from, that you have the opportunity to fulfill your potential, not just hit a glass ceiling or an incrementally rising glass ceiling.
Yeah. As an AD and a cultural curator, in a sense, do you feel like it's your responsibility to kind of cultivate that work for folks who maybe are not a Letitia Wright yet, they're not a John Boyega as yet, and especially in an institution where I have to imagine is a landscape that is quite white and quite conservative?
Yes. I would say I've been the AD now for 3 years. The first year, really, I didn't really get on stage until maybe 9 months into my first year. And then COVID has knocked out a year. So really, I've had like a year and a bit as an AD, being active. And I think my first move was, I think, to kind of come back to Britain and say, look, this is what I learned in America. And then the second wave, which is the season that hopefully we'll announce, is a little bit like where I go, okay, now, here is what I've learned since I've been back. And making sure that the Black voice is represented. And I don't mean it in an arched way. I'm a profound believer in Black postmodernism. As Bell Hooks references all of the time, I believe that, I can just do anything, right? I mean, and my Blackness is never going to leave me. The subject matter doesn't have to be quote unquote what people perceive to be Black. Blackness is everything. You know, however, I can enter into many different subject matters. However, specifically, it is the 40th anniversary of the Brixton uprisings, which was one of our early uprisings in this country around race. And so actually I commissioned a lot of work, or a good few pieces of work that came out of an African Caribbean British voice, because we were the dominant culture when it comes to Blackness then. We are not now. The dominant culture is West African in terms of Blackness in Britain now, but we were then. And so actually trying to celebrate that voice, trying to find that voice, trying to investigate that voice, that's felt really important to me.
Felt like I got goosebumps listening to you talk about that. I teach because I teach at the university here, and I do a course on post-colonial writing and art. So I'm actually teaching a bit about the Brixton riots next week actually, and it's interesting thinking about Black creatives or Black thinkers in white spaces, and very often, you know, the question that are asked, which is, you know, like, why in the face of that overwhelming whiteness would creatives decide to enter this industry? Like, I mean, I dabble in film as well as theater, and like, I mean, these are very often things that are remembered or seen as white. And why do you think you ended up in theater? Like, I mean, like, persons may say you could have been somewhere else, you know, but like, you came into this industry, which is not always welcoming, but you are here and you're doing your work. Like, what was the impetus?
I think that's a tremendous question, and it's a tremendous question because it is like a diamond. It has many faces and many facets, right? And both negative and positive, and I don't mean that you're framing it in a negative way, but I think its construction is worthy of investigating from both the positive and the negative side of that diamond, right? If there is such a thing. Sorry, that metaphor was just going on too long. But
I love metaphors. Keep going.
but it got torturous. But I would say this. I would say, much like any art form, you don't really choose it. It chooses you. Often people say, you know, ask me, you know, what do I need to be an actor? What do I need to be successful in theatre or film? What do I need? And I say, actually, you shouldn't even be asking that question, because actually it's not only did it choose you, but you have to be able to do absolutely nothing else in your soul. Doesn't mean that you can't do it if you choose art, because there's too much rejection in it. There's too much pain in it for you not to have to define yourself through it. So I would say that theatre chose me. And theatre chose me because in literal forms and in metaphysical forms. In the literal form, I met the then artistic director of Bristol Old Vic, a man called Andy Hay. And Andy said to me, "Kwams, what are you doing?" And I said, "You know what, I'm thinking about doing some writing." He said, "Oh, what kind of writing?" And I said, "Oh, I might go into film." I'm talking, this is 20 years ago. I said, "I might do a bit of film, you know." And he went, "But why? Why would you do that? Why, you know theatre, you're a theatre actor. Why would you?" And he said, "If you write me a play, I'll commission it." And I went, "Great, never one to look a gift horse in the mouth." And so I wrote my first play, A Bitter Herb, and then he produced it. So literally theatre pulled me. But then I ran into the works of August Wilson. And in running into the works of August Wilson, I was able to then, oh, this work is about service. This isn't just about storytelling. This is how you can serve. And what's really important, and I understood this the moment that my plays were produced, in particular at the National Theatre, that the audience was made up of enablers. White, middle class, white, upper middle class, professional enablers. That if you put a problem in front of them, if you catalyzed an issue for them, they had the tools to find the solution. to work towards a solution. And once I had worked that out, whereas I don't know about that in terms of the world of film, but absolutely in the world of theatre, the audience who can solve problems are in front of you. They choose to come to it. Then I was like, yeah, theatre's for me, yo. I can serve here. Does that? But on the flip side, and this is where to speak to what might be the cold whiter side of this, you are a stranger in a foreign land. And the thing about being strangers in foreign lands is that sometimes it can totally and utterly pull your spirit and your soul. It can change your spirit. It can dull your spirit. It can tell your soul that it is not connected to Africa, but it is connected to Europe. It is connected to Greece. It is connected to things that are not directly of you. And then it kills you from the inside. And that is the dance that one has to do when you are in the traditional white space that is theatre. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the high arts are one of the last pillars of white supremacy. And our job is to go in and chip at that pillar by creating a new, vibrant, and honest canon that is non-tribal.
There is so much to work with from that. I feel like I'm in a theater watching a play and like getting profound lines just coming out at me. But I really like your point about theater as service and about that sort of responsibility in the way that you end up having as a Black artist. Because I was talking with a friend of mine who is Black British. Her family, both of her parents are Jamaican. They came over in their parents came over in the Windrush generation, and so I said that I'm interviewing Kwame. She's like, oh, I'm gonna read what she texted me back. Actually, she was like, I saw his production of The Tree. The audience stood throughout the show, and it was one of the most moving things I've seen in the theater. So clearly, your work is making that impression. And Britt and I were talking about this earlier before you came, actually, about that connection that the diaspora has outside of the Caribbean. It doesn't matter if you're Jamaica, Grenadian, Vincentian, Guyanese. Like because I studied in the UK for a bit of time, and when I met my friend, someone who's Jamaican, like I felt like I was meeting family. Like we don't have any sort of like actual connection, but you feel that diaspora connection. And I was thinking especially now how there is like so many attempts to divide the region to keep us from finding our potential as a group. How important do you find interacting with other artists from the region, whether they're born here or they're in here? Like, how important do you find your art as a way of connecting that diaspora?
It's so interesting that you say that. I'm a diaspora baby, right? I mean, I'm African, I'm Caribbean, I'm British. I lived and worked in America. It's like the new world and the old world throws through my blood in a profound way, like it does through all of us, right? And so, but there's something that's really interesting to me, because my mother, in particular, my father as well, were such big influences, that whenever I hear an Eastern Caribbean voice, to be truthful, I feel like I'm back in the womb. I feel like I'm back in the embrace of my mother.
God, it's beautiful.
And actually, it bites me often. Like I might go to Trinidad, right? And I hear a Trinidadian, because Grenadians are Trinidadians, and Trinidadians are Grenadians. And like my auntie grew up. So when I was a kid, I used to go to, when we'd go to Grenada, I'd always go to Trinidad because my mum's sister was there. So, you know, I feel a natural akin. And sometimes I'm away somewhere else in the world and I hear a Trinidadian voice. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, and I'm just like, hi. And they probably just think I'm a bit of a weirdo because they're like, why is this brother all getting all emotional? Why is it? And, you know, and I feel the same way about Jamaica in a way, because actually, you know, it was the dominant Jamaican culture in Britain that forged the way here for us. That actually, and so that's a long way round of saying that my attachment to the diaspora is deeper than intellectual. It is not a cerebral connection. It is an emotional connection. When I read the works of Errol John, I go, yeah. I connect to it in a profound way. You know, when I read Sam Selvon, I go, I connect to it in a romantic way, not just a cerebral way. So again, it's hard to answer your question because it is deeply embedded in me that I am tricultural, that I am African, Caribbean, and British. Every one of those fire off something profound in me. It's really important, however, particularly when I'm in the United States, that I seek out people of Caribbean heritage. Because actually, what's very interesting is that in Britain, we wear our origin story on our sleeve. Like my youngest son, his mother is Ghanaian and Nigerian. You know, I'm Grenadian. Look, I'm even describing myself as Grenadian, though I wasn't born there. We kind of wear it. And he still will say, you say, who are you? He'll say, you know what? I'm a diaspora kid. I'm Ghanaian, Nigerian, Grenadian. He'll do that all, you know. And whereas in America, I often had to scratch beneath the surface to kind of find that, you know, for someone to say, yeah, I'm Caribbean. And I mean, like, there's only one person I really met who told me they were Caribbean straight off, is the director of the Apollo Theatre, Camila Forbes. And yeah, and Camila kind of like straight away, she went, hey, Kwams, you know I'm Jamaican, isn't it? And I was just like, what? West Indian, and we were in. So actually, that connecting with those from home is really important. So identifying those who are Caribbean in the American context is really important to me. Like I discovered, and sorry to wrap up, I discovered the other day that Nia Long has some Grenadian roots.
Yeah,
and
she does. She does.
Is Trini too?
Yeah.
Is she Grenadian or Trini or both?
I think she's Trini. I've been claiming Nia Long for a while, so I hope she's Trini.
Well, in this thing, it was called Great or kind of, I don't know, something about diasporans from the Caribbean, right? And it said Nia Long Grenada. And I was just like, what? But if it's Trini, all good, right? But I had no idea. I hadn't. And now I start thinking, what can I cast her in where she can use her natural
I think folks would be surprised to find out how true that is of so many of our Black American icons and stars. But to your point, I don't find we get to wear that as proudly here in this country. It's part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation, because I know growing up in America, you're automatically given the title African American if you're Black. And there's obviously a connection to Africa if you're a Black person. But oftentimes I do subscribe more to my Caribbean culture because that's how my family raised me, and that's really, I find I don't get to express that as often. It's certainly not reflected in media, theater, arts in a nuanced way as often.
Yeah, that's why doing the festival was such fun, because I was just like, yeah, let's amp this up, you know. It's really important. I think the other thing that, which of course that I know that you will know, and I have a series of books literally just there on my bookshelf, and but one of the ones that I most enjoy is 1 second. It's called there you go. So it's one of the others. It's called The American Immigration Collection, right? And this one is called the American, what's this one? It's called The Negro Immigrant. And it's part of a doctoral thesis that speaks about the West Indian leading the manhood programs of the early 20th century in America, and the clash between the West Indian and the African American.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because like I was listening to you and Brittany talk about being Black Afro-Caribbean in the US. I was thinking, it's funny the way that so many Caribbean writers were central to the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes.
But their Caribbean value is just like completely eroded. Like
if we must die, let it not be.
I was thinking about Claude McKay, and I was like, and I saw him in something a few weeks ago, and they were like American poet, and I was like, actually,
Claude McKay's Jamaican, bro.
Exactly, but people don't know that. They don't know.
I mean, I find it tremendous. You just have to look at Marcus Garvey, Jamaican. You have to look at Malcolm X, Mother's Grenadian. You have to look at Kwame Ture, straight Trinidadian. You have to look at Louis Farrakhan, Katishan. You go, I mean, literally, you go Shirley Chisholm, Barbados.
I saw somebody talking about Fanon in a movie. They were like, he was an African. I was like, Fanon is from the Caribbean. Like, what's happening?
It's the erasure of that culture that is so persistent. And it has
I think for me, like, that's one of the reasons, like when I was living in the UK, so like I saw your play. I also saw Nine Night.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like seeing McQueen's Small Axe reminded me that, as much as we come to an awareness of Black culture in the media, people still see it as a binary. There's African American Blackness and there is continental Africa. Yeah. But like Blackness in the UK, Blackness in the Caribbean, it sort of, for some reason, it moves beyond the mainstream for a reason that I think, and I'm glad to talk to you, to have a way of thinking and talking through that and thinking about how important it is to show that Blackness in other spaces, because to show that, multiplicity, to show that, the gamut of Blackness, it's not just two things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and we understand it. The link to Black being defined through the lens of Africa America is very clear. The American is the biggest economy in the world, and it's linked to capitalism, and it's linked to global capitalism and export, and exporting of culture. It is, and without a shadow of a doubt, that in Britain, up until probably the late, nearly the 2000s, nearly every Caribbean person in London had a Jamaican accent. We pretended to be Jamaicans, and why? Because they were dominant, and they were dominant in the physical form. Excuse me. They were dominant in a cultural form, from music to sport. It was a dominant, front-footed culture that everybody bowed to, in the way that we bow now to the African American. And actually, what's beautiful is that we're now living in a time of true internationalism, where actually the only place where we haven't, I think, as a global community, spent enough time really investigating and understanding and making part of the family is the Afro-Brazilian. Because there are more of them than there are of anybody else.
Yeah. Right.
But Kwame, you don't think we're gonna just like let you sit on this podcast and talk about your Jamaican accent, not like hear your Jamaican accent though? Like, I mean,
no, bro, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. Not after I've already put it. No, actually, I will tell you. I think a funny story. That I remember I was in Grenada in about 1990. Big old video camera on my back. It was like huge, but I hadn't been back for ages, and I wanted to capture the family and capture the island. And as I was right by the carronage, a group of boys came up to me, and they started to flex a little bit, right? Like, and they were like going, listen, who tell you to film me? What happened to you, boy? Give me the tea. And they started, and so I put on my Jamaican accent because I thought it would intimidate. And I went, I want a blood clot, do you? You want to see my, and literally,
Okay, why is that phrase everyone goes to when they're trying to fake a Jamaican accent?
I know, you've got to go to the blood clot or the pussy clot, right? You go there, you go to the dirty language.
It's the most inappropriate language, right off the bat.
But I got to say, actually, one time I was in London, and I was late to go to the movies. And you know, you're supposed to reverse back into parking, right? And I saw this parking space, and I saw this guy reversing in. I was like, look, forget that. And I zoomed in, and it was unfair. And he pulled right up, and I saw it was a white guy, right? And you know the prejudices of old. I was just like, listen, yo, I'm just gonna get out there. I'm just gonna do some black business, and
gosh.
And as I opened the door, the white guy jumped out, and he actually went, "I want a blood clot. You want to see me?"
No.
And it was legitimate Jamaican. And as he did it, he saw me go, "Huh?" And he went, "Yeah, that got you in it." Because he was a white Jamaican, so he knew the gag. And so again, I use that as examples of how dominated we were by the Jamaican narrative in the way that we are with the African American. And I think now we're beginning, actually in part to Idris Elba, that just broke and introduced the Caribbean, or not even, but Black Britain to America. And now we kind of look at the Black Brits as being, oh, they're Caribbean ancestry, and they're African, So I think we're entering into an international time.
You have to include both of those scenes in upcoming works, and otherwise I will steal them. I swear,
brother. You can take it, bro. It's all good. It's all good. I offer these days. I don't even need to be credited, yo. I'll just be pleased when I see it. I'll go,
beautiful.
That's me.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. So you mentioned Nia and Idris. Is there anyone else you think you'd want to work with, Caribbean or not, in the future?
I'm really, really, really want to work with Delroy Lindo. Delroy Lindo is Jamaican. Actually was Black British and then parents are Jamaican. I'm just, actually, I want to do Let There Be Love with Delroy Lindo.
That would be amazing.
And so look, I just put it out into the universe so that it can happen. I tried to email him, but obviously the email I had for him is old. So I'm like going, yo, bro, hit me back, man.
Delroy Lindo, if you're listening to Theater Token Friends, contact us. We're gonna get you Kwame's details. We want this to happen.
Correct.
Like we want this to happen. Is there anything that you particularly like him in? Because I'm a big Delroy Lindo fan also.
I'm a huge Delroy Lindo fan. And actually, and I said this to him the other day, I was doing a kind of talk with him and Spike Lee about the Five Bloods, his brilliant performance in the Five Bloods. And actually, one of the performances of his that I enjoy the most is when he plays West Indian Archie in Malcolm X.
He is quite good in that. He has had such a great career with Spike. Like I often joke on Twitter that Alfred Woodard and Delroy Lindo in Crooklyn are my parents. Like they genuinely do remind me of my parents. So like I'm not that obvious, but he is so good with Spike Lee. Like he's had such a rich career.
Beautiful. His performance in that is brilliant. I think, and in this specific context as well, I really want to work with Kerry Washington. She's another Caribbean, right?
Jamaican.
And
that's my girl.
I'm really Jamaican.
Yeah,
Jamaican. And so I'm really interested in I'd love to kind of do a vibration with her too, because I think there's a way in which we can bring Caribbean culture or Caribbean part of ourselves to the fore through some of these brilliant artists who we only ever see as American.
That's really great, actually. I mean, like in thinking about your role at the Young Vic, especially in the current time that we're living in, hopefully soon we will be returning to theater in person, but obviously we can't return to theater with the same ways that we were doing theater before the pandemic. Like, what do you want to see different and better in theater after this pandemic is over?
I think if I can articulate it, then it's not the thing. I think I want to see the thing that I didn't think about. But yet, oh my God, that makes sense.
That was beautiful. That's
what the next generation is supposed to do, right? The next generation will do it. That they will come up with things that I go, oh,
right.
That's the equivalent of the iPhone. It's magic. And after a week, hasn't it always been so? That's what I think. I think in terms of, in the practical things, in terms of, EDI, equity, inclusion, and diversity. I think, or the other way around. But I think the brilliant thing about Black Lives Matter is that it's made our colleagues listen in a slightly more profound way. And I'm really going to be interested in 2 years' time when companies start looking at their KPIs and and they go, what have we achieved in this regard? I really want to look at its anti-Black racism and take strides to eradicating it as much as is humanly possible. And I really want artists to move into spaces. I'm bored of Zoom, and I want to. And there's, I've been doing what I'd call digital art or digital side. I don't even say side, but yeah, just digital art. I've been doing it since I was at Baltimore in 2011, and I don't want to do it by itself, but I like to do it in conjunction with the live. And I'm interested in how we're going to push notions of liveness beyond the two dimension of the Zoom or the internet performance. I want that pushed.
Absolutely, we want the same. And I think we can.
But you guys can see further.
Note. I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
But I welcome the pressure. It's gonna make us even better.
Yeah, agreed. But before we do let you go, like Andrew mentioned, we want to play a quick fire game of this or that, Caribbean edition. So if you want to give a brief explanation for your answers, you can, but no pressure. Do you feel ready for this?
I don't actually know the game.
All the ancestors are watching you, so
yeah.
Be careful.
I'm just gonna go for it. I don't even know I don't know this game, but hey, man, let's just jump in.
You'll get it quick.
Take it away, Brittani.
You'll get it quick. I'll give you 2 options. Speak from your heart. Ackee and saltfish,
all right.
Cuckoo and flying fish.
Cuckoo and flying fish.
Oh, Sean.
Already surprising me.
That is, I'm taken aback. But all right, okay, it's your game, not mine. Fry bake versus roast bake.
Fry bakes.
Okay. I'm a coconut bake gal myself, but oil down versus pepper pot.
Come on now, oil down.
Okay,
It's the wrong answer.
I was like, we're in a touchy spot with the Grenadian, Guyanese, and I don't know. I was trying to start something.
She is.
So you're hanging out, you're liming. Are you drinking solo or Carib?
Well, I mean, I actually don't drink alcohol, so it can be either.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go Carib.
Well, I have to ask you then, sorrel or ginger beer?
Sorrel every time.
Wait. Do you put ginger in your sorrel or no?
Yes.
Okay. Right
I'm
answer.
about to hang up.
Right answer. Right answer.
No, that
right
is not
answer.
the right
right
answer.
answer.
I'm about to end this Zoom. That is not the right answer.
It's got to have a little tang. It's got to have a little tang of ginger.
No,
exactly.
It does not. It's not ginger beer. No,
exactly.
stop it.
No, that's true though. It's not ginger beer, but I said a tang. Not a lot, just a tang.
I don't know if I can continue this, but I'll. You're listening to music. Is it dance hall or soca?
It's soca.
Okay. Notting Hill Carnival or the Labor Day Parade in Brooklyn?
Both.
Oh, good man. Protect yourself.
Protect yourself. Yes, you have to live there, but you might want to come.
I do them both. It's true though.
Yeah.
I do them both.
All right. So this might be a bit of an easy question, but theater, Once on This Island or One Love, the Bob Marley musical?
I think you know which one I'm going to say.
I do. Well, can you give us updates about it? Are there updates about it?
No, I don't know that there are right now.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe fave Bob Marley song?
Whoa, that's always hard. You know? Black Survivors. I want to say Redemption Song, but that's too easy. So I'm going to go Black Survivors.
Still a classic. Still a classic.
It's good, guys. This has been so much fun, Kwame.
I love this game. It's game over. I want more of it.
Oh no, this has been really fun. So tell our audiences what you're up to for the next few months or so. Where can we find you on media, online, your work?
So you'll find me in my home as we're all on lockdown here in London, and also invariably on a Zoom somewhere. But actually, I think that you know, we're getting ready, hopefully, to announce our new season at the Young Vic. So hold tight. You know, that should be happening in the next month or so, variant dependent. I've got a movie that at the moment that hopefully I'll start with slightly about the guys who released Viagra. It's a musical for film, and in fact, one of the guys is a Jamaican. So,
of course he is. Of course.
I mean, we're very serious about that in this part of the world.
I mean, you know, like it's real fun. I've never had more fun doing that. And then hopefully I've got a movie going into production next year that I've written about Marcus Garvey and the first Black FBI agent to bring him down. So that's kind of me-ish.
Oh, great.
That is amazing. You are doing amazing work, always have. It is a pleasure and a joy to speak with you and to keep watching you and learning from you. Trust me, there's so many young people, young Caribbean artists like myself who really do look at you as really a pillar in this industry and something to strive towards. You've done so much. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, God bless you for your kind words. I have to say that listening to the both of you has given me power today. Hearing you speak, feeling your vibration, and making the Diaspora Caribbean connection it's been a hard week, and you have just put some sunshine into my soul. So thank you.